All right, let's talk about Brian Thomas Jr., a prospect that's easy to fall in love with. I think like Chris Sims got some attention for having him as his number two wide receiver ahead of Marvin Harrison Jr., which, that's Chris Sims. He's always getting people's attention. But in general, there's definitely a lot of people who really like Brian Thomas Jr. Part of it is just the simple fact that the guy's 6'4" and ran a 4.33. That's going to get some attention, right off the bat. Now, one issue is that he might not have the jaw-dropping stats some other guys might have. He did have over 1,000 yards last year, but the PFF grade not quite as high as some other guys. Other stats only really to 1 year of having that kind of 1,000-yard production. His next career high was 361. So because of that, there's definitely some debates as to how good he really is. Well, let's watch the film and let's talk about it. Starting off with the play you see on your screen, which is, to be honest, a lot of what we saw from Thomas, which is kind of why I think he's such a question mark and kind of I don't want to say boomer bust, but maybe a bit of an unknown when it comes to the evaluation process. That's the route he's going to be running. He's just running the underneath route right here. Watch as when Jaden Daniels takes the snap, he looks down the field but doesn't love what he sees down the field, so Daniels, doing what he should be doing, goes kind of underneath looking for, Brian Thomas Jr., who's kind of the what you're supposed to do if nothing's open down the field. Daniels is going to flip it to Thomas Jr., who makes the catch, but doesn't get much after that. And I'm not saying that this was a good or a bad play by Thomas Jr. I guess I would say a good play, right? He did what he was supposed to do. That's good. But it's just a lot of, his routes were these types of routes, which, you just can't take away too much from. So, not really anything bad or good, just kind of, he's a bit of an unproven, as we are dealing with a bit of a small sample size with him. Granted, going over here, that small sample size looked really good, because, something like this, for example, it's going to be an outside route, it's actually zone coverage that Army is in right here, and for Brian Thomas, one thing that I think is interesting, you talk about the speed and the size, and you might, think of a couple guys who have hit like that. DK Metcalf is a good example of someone who wasn't super hyped up coming out of college because he, was kind of considered a guy who could only run go routes, but then he developed some route running and was able to be successful. Brian Thomas is not a guy who can only run go routes. Watch how when this play begins, you see that right here, he's kind of faking as though he's going over the middle, and you see the arming corner and how he is buying in on that. So when Thomas then cuts towards the outside, look at how open he gets, and even at this point, you might think the play is dead. It is not quite dead just yet. Watch him make a move, gets around that first Army player before other Army players bring him down. Listen, it's Army, right? I'm not saying you're going up against the elite of the elite competition, but still, it is still, it's good moves, and he definitely can pull these kind of things off. This one's another one. It's a one-on-one matchup. This time it's against Florida, and watch what happens. So this play begins, and you're going to see that right here, again, it's that kind of fake as though he's going over the middle. Using the route running to help himself get more open, that's such an important aspect in football, especially once you get to the NFL level where you can't really just run by guys anymore. But you see he's doing this part. So when he cuts, again, you look at the corner, it kind of starts falling over. Unfortunately, the throw was not on target, so couldn't get the completion there. But that was a touchdown-worthy route, certainly, by Thomas. And so those are the kind of things that he can definitely do. And I think that, kind of addressing what some people say is a negative early on, I don't think is the case. But really, this is the main positive. This is why you draft Brian Thomas Jr. is a play like this, where it's going to be a one-on-one matchup on the outside, and you're drafting him to hopefully beat one-on-one matchups. Neighbors kind of got a lot of attention as the number one on the other side of the field a lot of times for LSU. So on this play, you see that Daniels is going to take the snap. It is a pure one-on-one matchup down the field. The safety's coming over, but there's a one-on-one situation, and there's a window here. It's not a wide-open window, but Daniels is able to make a nice throw. Thomas is able to make the catch while in traffic. He's very good at this type of stuff, and it's not just, a play like this, you look at it and say, okay, you won the rep, nicely done, but there are times when he dominates the rep as well. Something like this, for example, where what's going to happen is it's, again, one-on-one matchup, down the field, single safety deep. All right, let's see what happens. You're going to see that Daniels takes the snap. He's going to look in that direction and fire in that direction. And you see this is just blowing by the corner you're going up against, which, again, it's the kind of thing where you bring up, I think Christian Watson is a good example of someone who in college just always did it and it always worked, but then in the NFL level, it's worked sometimes, but not maybe as consistently. Perhaps an even better example might be like Kadarius Toney, who certainly didn't have the height that Thomas Jr. has, but, a big part of Toney's game was just blowing by corners on the outside. Gets to the NFL, corners can run with him, and then what else can you do? But at the same time, like, these things still are going to work at the NFL level, right? And as you see this throw on the money, Thomas Jr. is able to make the catch, nearly gets the touchdown. Disappointing, you can't quite get the touchdown there. You got so close, right? But, still a very good play. And then there's the other aspect of how you can make these plays work. Something like this, where what's going to happen is it looks like it's actually 2 safety deep, but the, outside the numbers on the top of the screen is going to be a one-on-one matchup with Thomas. So, essentially just a one-on-one matchup down the field. You're going to see that Daniels takes the snap. He is going to look in that direction and fire in that direction. And you get to this point, and there isn't a ton of separation this time. And to be honest, that does happen. Like, it does happen where, you look at him and he's not getting totally open. However, here, there was a big enough window, and look at that great contested catch to still get the touchdown. He definitely, I wouldn't say he was elite at this stuff, but definitely can make these types of catches. This was certainly a highlight. This is one of his better ones he's made, but definitely he can relatively consistently make the tough catches, and that's definitely a positive for him. So, okay, if those are the positives, well, what are the negatives for someone like Brian Thomas Jr., who, I'm kind of bringing up as someone who's very good and someone who does a lot of really good stuff. If he's someone who can run a 4.3, is 6'4", is, good route runner and good contested catch guy, what else do you need? Well, I think the issue is just consistency with him. I think if you look at his highlights, you're like, this guy's going to be a superstar. This guy's going to be, best receiver in draft class or second best receiver in draft class, whatever. I think the issue is just he didn't quite get the wins that a lot of other guys did. I brought up kind of the advanced stats saying that he didn't win as consistently. Now, I would fight back on like the advanced stats aspect and say there is a lot of evidence to support that doesn't matter so much. Like a lot of times it's more important just to be someone who can win and show that you're capable of winning than win super consistently in college, because the game is so different once you get to the next level. So I actually wouldn't pay attention to the advanced stats whatsoever. But even on tape, you do see that there is a lack of consistency. The contested catch stuff is great, but then there'll be ones where you're like, maybe you could have had a chance there and weren't able to make it work. Blowing by guys is great, but he doesn't always do it. People have also brought up not the best against press coverage. I didn't really see it that bad when I watched film, but it's possible because I was looking for it. I was like, I wasn't as disappointed by it once I saw it. There were times when he did struggle against press. That's true. But as a whole, I think the other thing you would throw in is situation did him some favors. Was playing against easier competition because he had, a number one receiver across from him and a really good quarterback. That certainly helped. But I still think he's a really interesting prospect. I can't put him with the top 3 guys because of those issues and because of the small sample size personally for me. But I could easily see him. I don't think it's crazy to think that in a couple of years he could be number 1 in the draft class when we look back at it. Like, that's his ceiling. He is super high ceiling guy, kind of similar to Christian Watson or someone like that. Thomas is more of a polished player than Christian Watson was coming out of college, but that's kind of the, I can see, it's kind of a comparison I would make. Maybe like a DK Metcalf might be a better comparison, although I would say Thomas is more polished than Metcalf was, but Metcalf just did a lot of work after getting drafted. So who knows, what could happen? Could he be the next DK Metcalf? Sure. Could he not succeed? I think he'll probably still be a guy for a while. The question is just how good of a player will he get. But yeah, those are kind of my thoughts on Brian Thomas Jr. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. Always love hearing from y'all. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.